statement that was signed by 4 of Kennedy's siblings said that RFK Jr. may share their father's name, but he does not share the same values, vision, or judgment.
He's trading in on Camelot, celebrity, conspiracy theories, and conflict for personal gain and fame.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is back with us.
I do worry that Bobby just taking some percentage of votes from Biden could shift the election and lead to Trump's election.
The notion of a Kennedy making a significant impact on American politics is hardly new. The Kennedy family has long been synonymous with political prowess, charisma, and a commitment to public service. From John F. Kennedy's presidency to Edward Kennedy's tenure as a U.S. Senator, the Kennedy name carries weight and resonance across the nation. You can almost liken the Kennedys to the Kardashians of the Capitol. For over a century, the steady hand of the Kennedy family has led America through its greatest challenges. They aren't just in politics, they are politics. And now, with things so unusual in 2024,
Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and I'm running as an independent candidate for President of the United States.
It almost seems as if another Kennedy will ride in on his white steed and save the day. Or will he? Championing both liberal and conservative ideas, and often accused of being a conspiracy theorist, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. may be the candidate who has the biggest impact on the election of our next president. He is polling quite high for an independent candidate, more than any third party in a generation. This could make this election one of the closest in history, possibly even tighter than Al Gore versus Bush. However, the consequences of his candidacy might be more complex than people assume. While many pundits consider his run for the White House a long shot, there is little doubt he will take away votes from both Biden and Trump. Is RFK Jr. the conspiracy theorist he has been branded, or a truth teller? Well, that depends on your vantage point. Some say he'll take votes from the Democrats because of his controversial views, such as his vaccine skepticism. On the other hand, right-wing Republicans who love conspiracy theories find him highly appealing. Could RFK Jr.'s Democratic roots then be a Trojan horse strategy meant to aid the Dems by diverting votes from Trump? Is there more to him than meets the eye? Perhaps there is a deeper game at play. To figure this out, we need to get inside this Kennedy's head and explore his views on key issues currently shaping the national discourse, and why some pundits say he is a Kennedy in name only. If you've watched RFK Jr. on the Elon podcast, you'll already know a bit about him. He values free speech and believes people must speak their minds and have different opinions. RFK Jr. also thinks our government isn't as transparent as it should be. According to him, big companies have too much influence over what happens behind the scenes. He says that when corporations dominate governments, human beings, communities, and even the environment are turned into mere commodities. Like most Americans, he is worried about the power of companies like BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. He thinks such companies threaten our freedom and the way we live. He's also critical of pharmaceutical companies and their very large ad budgets. One big concern for him is that Americans are taking a lot of prescription drugs, but not getting any healthier. For example, in 1900, U.S. life expectancy was 47 years, and by 2019, it hit 79. But in 2020, life expectancy fell to 77 and dropped further to 76.4 in 2021. Just one example of the effect RFK Jr. says Big Pharma and Big Food, most owned by the aforementioned companies, are having on everyday Americans. RFK Jr.'s views on transparency and corporate power offer a compelling perspective on the intersection of politics and big business. Drawing from his experience as an environmental advocate, Kennedy emphasizes the importance of holding powerful corporations accountable for their actions, particularly in industries such as energy and pharmaceuticals. his views on the media and war are equally compelling and, as expected, controversial. Is there a deep state bureaucracy against him because of these controversial views? Let's find out. RFK Jr.'s views on the media are not very positive. He believes that the media should question the government, protect people's rights, and not become a tool for big companies and their special interests. He has expressed concerns about media consolidation and the diminishing diversity of voices in mainstream media outlets, warning against the dangers of censorship and misinformation. His strong thoughts about the media extend to important events outside the country, like the Russian-Ukraine war. According to him, the U.S. news media often paints a one-sided picture, portraying Putin as the villain without providing the full context or historical background. In an era marked by polarization and disinformation, Kennedy has been a vocal advocate for protecting free speech rights. He believes that a robust and independent media is essential for holding power to account and fostering informed citizenry. When it comes to war, RFK Jr. criticizes the Democratic Party for what he sees as a pro-war stance, particularly pointing fingers at Biden's foreign policy decisions. He argues that Biden has a history of wavering on war-related issues, ever since his time in law school to his actions as vice president and now president. RFK Jr. suggests that the Iraq War in 2003 was part of a larger plan by neoconservatives to assert American dominance globally. He claims that these neocons had significant influence in the White House and State Department, shaping policies that ultimately led the country towards conflict and military interventions.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
But this raises a curious dilemma. Will RFK Jr.'s outspokenness steal more votes from Republicans, given that some may label him as an isolationist? It's a complex dynamic. His alignment with certain Republican critiques might resonate with some voters, while his stance on other issues could alienate traditional Republican voters. To get more clarity, let's dive deeper into RFK's foreign policy beliefs. On the issue of foreign policy, particularly regarding China and Russia, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. brings a nuanced perspective. He doesn't think China or Russia is looking for a war with the U.S., and believes we should focus on competing economically rather than militarily. He also points out that China's economic influence is growing globally, and many countries see China in a positive light. While RFK Jr. advocates for peaceful dialogue with China, he seems to overlook the tension surrounding Taiwan. He believes in peace, but does he fully grasp the complexities of China's actions, especially concerning Taiwan? Could his brand of Kennedy diplomacy be the answer here? Kennedy advocates for a balanced approach to U.S.-China relations, one that prioritizes cooperation on shared challenges while also addressing areas of disagreement and conflict. He believes that the United States should uphold its values and principles in its dealings with China, while also pursuing pragmatic solutions to complex geopolitical challenges. He parallels past leaders like Eisenhower and his uncle JFK, who desired peace with the Soviet Union but faced opposition from the CIA and military interests. RFK Jr. criticizes the Biden administration for allegedly preventing the State Department from pursuing peace talks in the Russia-Ukraine proxy war. Now, this may seem a little confusing and against typical Republican views and Trump's stance on Putin and revealed China policy, 100% tariffs on China-backed cars crossing Mexican borders. Additionally, RFK Jr. raises concerns about the border crisis, advocating for stringent border control to protect American jobs and social services. He questions the legitimacy of claims made by illegal immigrants and emphasizes the need to prioritize the well-being of American citizens. These viewpoints reflect a broader debate within American politics regarding foreign policy, border security, and handling global conflicts. As these issues continue to unfold, they will undoubtedly play a significant role in shaping the political landscape in the United States. But one thing is for certain: RFK Jr.'s strategy of discussing these issues on long-form podcasts versus the typical candidate soundbites allows for a much more nuanced discussion than being had during previous election cycles. However, these mixed views on foreign policy also bring about another essential question. Could it be possible that Democrats have thrown a wild card into the mix by promoting RFK Jr.? According to leaked documents from WikiLeaks, this tactic isn't entirely new. For example, the Dems originally wanted to compete against Trump and elevated him on purpose in the 2016 elections. So what's exactly happening here? Is RFK Trump's loss or win? Maybe RFK's thought process on the Russia-Ukraine war and the border crisis might help us draw some parallels. RFK Jr.'s perspective on the Ukraine conflict revolves around the notion of it being a proxy war fueled by politically ambitious neocons in America. He delves into the history of NATO expansion and agreements with Mikhail Gorbachev, suggesting that honoring these agreements could have avoided the current conflict. There is also evidence that the CIA has been present and meddling in Ukraine, and thereby creates the question mark on the claim of Russia's attack being completely unprovoked. But maybe the Democrats don't like his politics and how he relates his views to those of his uncle. For instance, RFK Jr. draws parallels to World War II, sharing his uncle JFK's view that the Soviet Union played a significant role in defeating Nazi Germany. He highlights the scale of the conflict, with the Soviet army deploying millions of troops and suffering the majority of German war casualties. This historical perspective informs RFK Jr.'s concerns about outside militarization in Ukraine, such as NATO involvement. He argues that Russia's past invasions through Ukraine during World War I and World War II contributed to their opposition to foreign military presence in the region. Furthermore, RFK Jr. critiques the U.S.'s post-Cold War actions, particularly the expansion of NATO into former Soviet states. He references warnings from Clinton-era State Department officials about the potential for conflict if NATO becomes involved in Ukraine, likening the situation to the lead-up to World War I. Back home, let's delve into how RFK Jr. trends on key domestic issues. Regarding the Second Amendment and guns, RFK Jr. strongly upholds Americans' constitutional rights. He doesn't see meaningful ways to reduce gun ownership through legislation and opposes the idea of taking away people's guns. This aligns with many Republican viewpoints on gun control. Regarding medical issues, RFK Jr. has been vocal about his concerns regarding vaccines and their potential impact on health. He has faced criticism and been labeled as a conspiracy theorist, particularly from the left. Despite this, he presents compelling arguments for his stance, as seen in his discussions with Joe Rogan, and says he wants more discussion and clinical research to be the directing factor, not advertising budgets swaying the conversation towards those who stand to gain the most. RFK Jr. is also open to bipartisan solutions, such as an assault weapons ban, only if there is consensus among Republicans and Democrats. However, he faces challenges in gaining mainstream acceptance due to the controversies surrounding his views. Is RFK Jr. a Trojan horse sent in to weaken the Biden and Trump candidacies? According to popular polling averages like those from Real Clear Politics, RFK Jr. stands as the leading third-party contender, garnering a notable 12.4% of the vote. Interestingly, RFK Jr.'s impact on the race isn't just numerical, it's strategic. While he certainly siphons votes from both Biden and Trump, the numbers suggest a slightly more significant impact on Biden's standings. In a head-to-head race, Trump edges ahead 47 to 45%. However, when you throw RFK Jr. and the third-party candidates into the mix, Trump's lead widens to 41% against Biden's 38%. RFK Jr.'s influence becomes even more apparent in the battleground states where the election's fate often hangs. In Pennsylvania, his 9% support managed to tip the scales, turning a statistical tie between Biden and Trump into a 3% victory for Trump. Similar dynamics play out in Arizona and Nevada, where RFK Jr. support pushes Trump to wider margins of victory. Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s announcement of Nicole Shanahan as his running mate has sparked quite a bit of intrigue and speculation. Shanahan, 38, is an attorney and high-tech Silicon Valley businesswoman. As a prominent figure in the fields of both law and technology, she is expected to prove invaluable in shaping Kennedy's policy platform, particularly in areas such as cybersecurity, intellectual property rights, and digital privacy. Other political pundits simply claim she was chosen for her money, with Kennedy needing over $50 million by some estimates to gain ballot access in all 50 states, a number his opponents don't have to worry about with automatic ballot access being granted to the big party candidates. Can Shanahan fund the ballot access investment Kennedy needs? After all, her former husband was the co-founder of Google and is estimated to be worth at least $100 billion. How much of his fortune she won in the divorce is unknown, but some reports suggest more than $1 billion of her former husband's stock was transferred rather than sold shortly after their divorce was finalized. It is also reported that it was Nicole who financed the infamous $4 million Super Bowl ad. She certainly brings deep pockets to the table for Kennedy. However, it is important to note that Shanahan's track record as a successful entrepreneur and advocate for social change closely aligns with Kennedy's own values and priorities. Her commitment to leveraging technology for the greater good and promoting diversity and inclusion within the tech industry resonates with the progressive agenda that Kennedy has been championing throughout his campaign. However, while Shanahan's credentials are impressive, the decision to select her as his running mate is not without risks for Kennedy. As a relative newcomer to the political arena, Shanahan lacks the name recognition and experience in public office that could help bolster Kennedy's candidacy. Additionally, Shanahan's background in the tech industry could potentially alienate some voters who are skeptical of the influence of big tech companies in politics. At the end of the day, much will depend on how effectively Kennedy and Shanahan are able to leverage their respective strengths to connect with voters and build momentum for their campaign. Despite RFK Jr.'s rising profile and impact on the race, it's not clear if he will be the next occupant of the Oval Office. Democrats, staunch in their dislike for him, are unlikely to rally behind his candidacy. He has also been painted as a homophobe because he feels there is evidence AIDS is not caused by HIV, but by lifestyle choices, and made worse by some medical interventions. On the other hand, his political pedigree and name recognition could give him a considerable advantage in electoral contests. The Kennedy brand carries a legacy of progressive ideals and social justice, which could attract support from a broad coalition of voters, particularly within the Democratic Party. Moreover, his consistency in advocating for old-school liberal ideas, reminiscent of his late Uncle JFK and father, both tragically assassinated, is noteworthy. However, it's essential to recognize that Kennedy's potential entry into electoral politics is not without its challenges and controversies. His outspoken views on certain issues, such as vaccine safety, have drawn criticism from medical experts and public health officials. Ultimately, how Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will disrupt the elections remains to be seen. His potential candidacy raises intriguing questions about the intersection of celebrity, activism, and electoral politics. This, coupled with his unwavering stance on certain issues, paints a picture of a candidate unafraid to challenge the status quo, even if his chances of victory remain unclear. As the political landscape continues to evolve, one thing is certain: the presence of a Kennedy in the arena will surely generate attention and spark debate. Whether that translates into tangible electoral impact remains to be seen. If you liked this video, check out one of our other videos on other controversial characters like these.